What I want to do today is talk about the stages of production, specifically guided towards the TTRPG actual play space, because what we have is a lot of, Twitter posts and things like that, and we don't really have a language that breaks it down somewhere that we can keep referring to and things like that. So this is kind of a start on that effort on making something, and yeah, it's going to be a lot like TV or film because that's kind of what we're doing. And there's depending what you're doing, there's either 5 stages or 3 stages of production. Film, typically they say 5, and if you're going to TV, you're looking at 3, but it's just how they divide out things. And a lot of things aren't just, here's the thing you're doing now. Some of it continues on throughout the entire production. That's just sort of where the steps start. So I'm gonna kind of do a 3 with a bit of a 5 and kind of parentheses around things. So this is after you have an idea. You've written it down, you kind of got it set, what you want your show to be about. You go to someone, or if you're going to be running it on your channel, you just do it. But the first point is where you go and approach a channel or something and say, hey, I have this idea, here it is, here's what it looks like. You've developed your pitch and things like that. And for film or something along those lines, this would be considered phase 1, the development phase. And this is probably where you get maybe a producer or director on board, and you do some of the thing. It's basically get someone to say yes to the idea. And then once the idea is greenlit, you go into pre-production. That's why films take a year or two to make, is because there's development, there's pre-production, production, post-production. And the actual production is a very small amount of time compared to development, pre-production, and post, and distribution at the other end. And films take a year or two to complete because the actual filming time where the actors are on stage maybe takes 2 months, 3 months. The other part of those year or two is all the rest of the steps. And if you want an article on it, there's plenty of articles if you search on Google. And I've made a list in Notion that I'm following along here. But here is one of the many that goes over phases of film production, if you want something more official than me. So once you have your story going, so development and pre-production, we can kind of squish those together. And pre-production is everything leading up to the day of your first stream. So you're going to be outlining your story for each episode, putting down ideas you want to accomplish in an episode for the story to move forward. I was considering, do I like the words "your story"? Because it's really a story told with other people, and it's all of your stories. So maybe saying the story or something like that. But you have an idea with the story, but the players are going to add their own flavor to it, and it can go in various directions. But you start out with an idea of where you're going in this season. Do you tell a complete arc? Do you tell a part of it? Do you, what does episode 1 look like? What does the middle point look like? What does the end point look like? And you kind of have an idea there. And so you're going to outline that and have an idea what you want. You're going to be assembling your cast in pre-production. If you do a budgety thing, this is where you plan your budget. This is where you find your editor, your producer, this is where you get your music, your character art, your overlays, your logos, your title sequence. This is where you're going to set up OBS and assemble the assets in OBS. Get your sponsors, figure out what you're doing for subtitles and captioning, get a schedule together, find moderators for your channel, and figure out your production pipeline. Like, when will the episodes air? Where are they airing? Does it eventually go to a podcast or YouTube? Where we're also kind of unique is that we would be marketing the show in the pre-production step. In a film or TV, Studio already has faith that you'll be making some amount of money before they greenlight it. So marketing is usually after everything. But we need to go, hey, here's this person. We have character art, and probably about 2 weeks before your first stream. Over those 2 weeks, you're going to be introducing cast, give each cast member their own tweet or Instagram post or wherever you're posting, and just divide it up among the few days leading up to your stream. And maybe you have character art to show off, but this will get a chance to keep being in people's minds and going, hey, this day, this time, let's do it. And because it's live, you don't know what it's going to look like, so you can't really assemble something for the show or anything like they do in for a movie per se, where they already have everything made and they go, oh, okay, let's assemble these things and this elements, and this has meaning to the script in a movie poster and put that up. Plus, we're also unique in we gotta set up OBS or whatever broadcasting software you use and assemble the assets, and figuring out what you're doing for subtitles, captions, whether you're going to be paying a service, which if you can do that, we have free subtitles and captioners available that people seem to enjoy, and we understand that there's some faults with them as well. And but accessibility is cool. And so that's kind of pre-production. You're doing all that before you make your first show. And then we go into production, which is basically on a film set. You would have, you'd be going over storyboards. You'd be hiring your camera people, your sound people, your costume people, everyone you need to be on set just before you start rolling film. And then on production day, all those pieces come together to do a shoot. Between development and pre-production, maybe 2-3 months, and production, 1 day. The day you decide to stream live. And this includes all the prep before stream. On my Notion templates, I have that pre-stream producer checklist, and you can add to it. Check it out, and let me know that you're using it, and what changes you make to it. There it is. So that's where that would come in handy. So you're making sure everyone's there on time for the call time. You're doing all the video placement and the overlays. You're checking the audio, and then you hit the stream button and you go. 2 hours, 3 hours, however long you're going to go, depending if you edit the show afterwards or not. Or if you're live, then you're live. And then I would recommend something after you're done streaming called after show care, where you talk about you have time after you're done streaming where you talk to the cast. Production's where you want to do kind of your after show care, talk to your cast, see how they're feeling, how they're doing, just sort of bake in that time. It's necessary. Oh, and I should say, let's go back to pre-production a minute. This is also where you do a session 0 in pre-production. Remember to do session 0, so all you and your cast are on the same page. This is like your script reads for a film. Do a session 0, put it in the pre-production area, and do them, and plan to do multiple throughout the season. Maybe you do one at the beginning, at the midpoint, and one at the end, but you do that before your stream. And I just want to make a point of putting the emphasis on session 0 before you stream. Do the thing. And then in production, to follow that up, do an after show care. Say, hey, how'd you feel about that episode? Or if everyone has to split, get some contact flow going. Right? And then in production, this also may be where you, after the show is done, maybe you send the video off to an editor or you just upload it to YouTube for later editing, whatever. And then post-production is where you're editing, if you're doing sound design or color correction, all that. You get your completed video to the sharing site you're using it on. You fill in all the text fields for YouTube or whatever, again, whatever video sharing site you decide to use. You add your thumbnails, and you schedule the release of the VOD. So that's in post-production. And again, how long does that take? Well, how long does it take you to edit and sound design? So we're looking usually we go fast in terms of this. Like editing a film can take a very long time. You can spend 3 hours on a minute of film, right? Or on 10 seconds. In our case for APs, we're live stream. Most people have it ready in about a week or so. Say something like Children of Erte. They do their show, or even Rivals of Waterdeep. We do the show. So for Rivals, we do the show, have it done, and then it gets edited down for podcast forms and everything. Just, stuff gets a little trimmed. And then it releases Thursday that week. Show's on Sunday, releases Thursday. And so usually we're looking at about a week's time in there because we're doing so much live. But if you're doing something more complex, let's say like what Michaela did, you're going to spend months on editing and color correction, adding in graphics and everything like that. Just depends on how you figured out your workflow, which you should have done back in the pre-production sets. Now, all this stuff is going to change and move. Like I said, your story is going to change, during any step. Like in the middle of a stream, you may have to change how your story's flowing because it's not going the way you thought. And then, your other episodes, you adjust as well. And maybe it leads to something much more grand than what you had originally planned. And you're always going to kind of be marketing and everything. Marketing doesn't stop at at a point. So you schedule the release, and then you move on to the next episode. Now, for a film, there's the distribution step after post-production. So kind of for us, this can be wrapped into post-production. So again, we can kind of squish these together. And this is where you put the social media posts up, that the video is up and available for people to watch. Engage with your social media posts. If someone makes a comment back if you have time, over the next week or so before your next episode. Get some engagement going, and remind the cast to post about the episode too, because though retweets and things are good, usually it helps if it's them posting about it themselves, making an original post instead of just quoting the retweet. And for some reason, Twitter seems to like that a little better. It gets more views that way. Organic posts are almost always better. Yep, organic, good word. Yeah. So encourage that. And again, so if you want to separate it out from post-production and distribution, you can. Twitter is also, but wait, don't read this out loud. Too late. Yeah, if you want squish post-production, distribution is better. I want to just kind of, I like things in threes, so I'm going to squish distribution, post-production together. And if you find articles on TV, it's just TV production. It's just pre-production, production, and post-production. And commercials operate a little differently than a TV episode, than a film. So some of these steps are squished into different categories and occur at various times, but there's a basic language going on throughout those. Right after you get that episode out there, you do your next episode. So essentially you're in next episode pre-production. Now you've already done a lot to set up that initial episode. So now you're, check-ins with the cast. You want to promote, hey, we're still live next week or whatever, and make any changes to OBS, changes to the art, the intro, any of your process. This is the time to do it. Hopefully not the day of the production, not the day you're hitting go live on that stream. So this is the time to do that. Change story based on player actions, kind of unique to what we do, because again, we're telling a story together. I mentioned changes into OBS as kind of the last step there. And I say setting up OBS in pre-production is that you definitely want everything to you before you go live. It just gets more chaotic on the stream day, and maybe you have a better idea if it sits in your brain for a minute before it's stream day, because you're concerned with different things on stream day, and you just kind of need stuff to work. Not that stuff won't fail, because we all deal with software, and software is ridiculous sometimes. So that's the general outliney thing. And I'm trying to arrange this thing in Notion. I want to make a template for y'all. So many things are the final boss, and most of them are weird software things we can't account for. Yeah, there's a lot of weird things in production that we can't account for. So, and you know, that's part of what I talk about when you go to my Ko-Fi. I'm plugging myself now, but if you go to my Ko-Fi and or my Patreon and hire me for a one-on-one, kind of go over things you can do to have backup plans, and just how to take care of some of the pitfalls that might happen or that I've come across that I've had to come up with a solution to it in the last minute. And hopefully it won't be last minute for you. You'll go, oh, wait, I was told about this thing. Again, I feel like this is just a start on this because we have kind of in a unique show that AP is actual plays are a different beast than other things, especially if you do them live, that we kind of need to develop this language and have these things posted somewhere other than just Twitter posts or saying, hey, this person said X, this person said Y. There's going to be some of that, but we need to start putting these things together in a more cohesive way. And part of why I teach production and everything is because I want you to have a baseline thing to go on and build from there. You know, I want us all to have this sort of quality line and then up from there. Let's see, most of the AP shows I'm in have a separate DM, GM from producer. Is there a good list of things the cast can have ready prepared for the production crew ahead of time or on a regular basis? For the cast, when you get into pre-production, that's where, you know, take a headshot, get those available, and then while you've made your character and you've talked about your character behind the scenes in that pre-production stuff, and you've gone through things in session 0, you know, maybe have a line about them ready to go. So when you see that post on social media advertising it, you can post something about your character that is kind of unique to you and not too spoilery about it. So, you know, sentence or two. If you cosplay, definitely have that worked out beforehand. And if you do cosplay, let your producer or DM know. And then that can, because the colors you use can also inform the graphics. And even if you don't have character art right away, you still maybe want to give a sense of what colors you're using so that any overlay artist that you hire, or if you're doing the overlays yourself, kind of have an idea of a look to go for, right? Like when I did The Echoing Dark, that was just sort of my horror show, and the cast, I knew what cast I had, and I went all in on the horror and less on the silly comedy thing. They provided all the comic relief in that, but I had a sort of a dark forest background for me, and the colors were muted, and there was green and gray, and it was one of my favorite backgrounds I had done. Talk to your cast about color. I suppose that's not a thing we consider much about, but the colors you think you're using, that the vibe you want to do, talk about that with your cast, because your cosplay can help with them, or you can be helping with their cosplay if people cosplay, or just wear a shirt or something on screen. You know, they can maybe just reflect character colors and not have, I'm not saying cosplay because that's expensive. That's its own thing of time. But yeah, talk about colors. That's a useful thing that I just thought of. Because we're doing this collaboration, right? More so than, say, other things between cast members and you. Let's see, what else can the cast have ready? You don't have to know your character completely, but have the 3 or 4 actions or spells just up and ready to go that your character uses, or 3 to 4 skills, whatever. Just either memorize just a few things or have them as a very quick reference you can pull up and say, okay, these are kind of the signatures I see the character doing right now, and have those ready to go. So when it's your turn, sure, you might adjust on the fly, but you have some go-tos, and you have a variety, or a small variety. And if you want to, look something up and do bigger thing, or not bigger things, but other things, you still have that option. But yeah, 3 to 4 things you can just sort of rely on and come back to during a show. Whereas you're sitting around a table, you're going to go, okay, yeah, we got time to look up that spell and things like that. Anything to make the process a little smoother when you're filming versus, being around a table and you're having snacks. Like I said, you can just type in what are the phases of TV production, or what are the phases of film production, or what are the phases of commercial production, and that you'll get a lot of resources on the internet for those things. But making it unique to actual plays is something I want to continually work on. So again, we just have that baseline of knowledge, and we can all go, okay, I need to be doing this now. And if you sort of have the task laid out in front of you, sometimes it's less daunting. It's you know what you have to do, and kind of when you do it. When we look at, say, pre-production, if you do a Kickstarter before the show, that's a month, maybe 2, and that's before you get into that, because that's funding everything. So that's probably before you get into some of your music or your title sequence or things like that, right? And so where in the pre-production things fall is going to depend on your needs. Pre-production, this is where you find your crew, this is where you find your producer, this is where you find an editor if you want one, and your music, and your artist, and all that's in pre-production. So that can be 2-3 months. Like when I do charity stream, because I planning on a charity stream within the next month or 2, it takes a bit for the idea to kind of form, and then I try to go out a month ahead of time on everything, because my artists, they're doing a lot of their own things, right? And so I'm asking them to do a thing, and I have to have space for them to be able to do the thing amongst everything else they're getting paid to do. Or every charity stream you've seen on this channel has been at least thinking about it for a month or 2 ahead of time. And then one day, 1 3-hour period for production, and then it goes into post-production, where maybe for YouTube, sometimes for editing these things, we usually have a long intro sequence of 2 minutes or maybe 10 minutes, whatever. Give time for people to come in, see the go live tweets, right? But on YouTube, you don't need all that space. So I'd go into the YouTube editor, and I shorten that intro part, that starting soon screen, down. And then that would lead into an intro video, or just us into talking. And so it's up maybe 3 seconds, just to give people a pause of mind, like, okay, we're ready to go. And then title sequence, and we're going. And yeah, everything's off. So I try to trim that down, and that way people don't have to skip around as much. So that's in my post-production step. And then, I get the video ready. I fill in all the text fields, who the cast is, when it was recorded, all the things YouTube wants you to fill out for it. And also, make sure you have time built in. If you're not the one doing it, have time built in for people to do these things. Post-production, maybe a week or 2, again, depending on complexity. If you're doing a fully edited show, again, this could be another couple months. The typical advice that I've heard over the years is to have 3 shows ready to go. If you're editing a show together and it takes you, a month to get the first one, and then, okay, you kind of know editing flow, and you get things down, and so maybe it goes a little quicker. But if you're editing and release, have 3 ready to go, and then keep filming your other shows as you can. And that way, if there's a pause in production or something, you at least have a little time. You have those next 2 episodes releasing on a schedule to fill in any gaps that might occur in the production process. That's the usual recommendation, is before you put episode 1 up, have 3 to go. This is advice for podcasts that I've heard a lot, audio podcasts. So it may be more effective there, but I don't think it's a bad idea for actual plays either. If you're doing the heavily edited thing, and that way. And sure, stuff comes up, things happen, and maybe there's even a longer delay. But in that way, you're giving yourself a buffer of a couple episodes, you know. So episodes 1 up, and you filmed 3 episodes, you have them ready to go. You have episode 1 up. Coming into episode 4, something happens. Well, now you still have the time of episodes 2 and episodes 3 to release. You know, that's another couple weeks you have to try to get episode 4 ready and going and done. And so, you know, give yourself a buffer, so hopefully you don't take away from the buffer, but if you need to, that time is there. And check in with your cast. We all have various things we do throughout a day. And as you know, our budgets and things are small, or mostly doing it for free or very low cost. And so we have to do other things to supplement our income, and we do lots of different things. And so check in with people, and please, cast, check in with your DM or producer or whoever put out a check-in thing. Just let them know how you're doing. Keep the communication going, because that will keep your show strong and everything. As much as I would love to just be about show, not everyone has that mentality, and we can't all do that because we have so many other things we have to do in life. So remember, if you're checked in on, please reply to that. You know, maybe you do it once a week, something, but plan in the time to do that. For a regularly scheduled stream, it really helps to be in touch in between sessions. Yeah. Let's see. I know Dimension 20 shoots 2 episodes after shows a day to build out their buffer. Check-ins are key, even in a home game. Yep. It's all about creating that base of just having a language of production to go on, because we don't really have that, right? We don't have the Actors Guild doesn't take care of your cast. The the Producers Guild doesn't take care of producers or not. There's no formula for that in those scenarios. So we kind of have to adapt stuff that has worked over the, more than century of movies and TV that's gone on, and take the lessons from there and kind of bring them into what will be useful in the actual play side of things. And so, yeah, and some of what I mentioned, it might change. Again, I really just want to put this down to 3 steps instead of like the 5 for film production. But if you want 5, so again, the steps are development, pre-production, production, post-production, distribution. Now, I just want to kind of squish it all to pre-production, production, post-production, because I've mostly dealt with TV, and so I'm kind of more used to that language. But if it helps you, there's, other ways to delineate what you're doing. Thank you all for joining me. Have a good weekend. Please be kind to yourself, be kind to others.